The first thing I remember is the sound, not the pain, a sharp crack that didn't belong in a quiet, expensive neighborhood. And then this white-hot punch ripping through my thigh as my body slammed sideways into the side of my own car, my brand-new black Mercedes, the one I'd worked 15 years to afford. And suddenly the cream fabric of my pants was blooming red, while a man in uniform screamed above me, "Freeze, don't you move, or I'll put another one in you," like I was some wild animal he'd just brought down instead of a woman who'd been reaching for her wallet. My fingers went slack. My leather wallet hit the pavement and flipped open just right so the sun caught the gold of my badge, the letters FBI flashing for anyone who cared to look, and I actually watched. Officer Frank Miller glance down, ignore it, and casually kick the wallet under my car with the toe of his boot, burying the proof of who I was, like it was just another piece of trash in his way. Lying there on that sun-baked concrete leg on fire hands empty with a man pointing a gun at me and calling me suspect. I remember thinking one very clear thought through the haze. You picked the wrong black woman today. It had been the kind of morning people in Crestwood Hills paid $500,000 for. Sunlight slanting through old oak trees, sprinklers ticking across perfect lawns. Joggers in matching outfits doing their daily loop, the whole place looking like a real estate brochure. And me just trying to drive to the field office a little early to get ahead on casework. I wasn't on duty. I wasn't armed. I was just Dr. Lena Dawson that morning, the woman with the PhD and the federal badge and a burgundy silk blouse and tailored pants, hair braided back neat, feeling that quiet little hum of pride as I slid behind the wheel of a car I once thought I'd only ever see in magazines. Growing up, when a Mercedes drove past my bus stop, it meant someone else's life, you know what I mean? And now here I was, rolling through my own neighborhood in one, listening to jazz on low going, maybe 5 miles over the limit because the road was empty and the coffee at my favorite spot wasn't going to drink itself. I saw the patrol car before his lights came on. Habit. A black and white parked under a tree front end angled so he could watch the main road. And as soon as I passed, I caught the flare of red and blue in my rearview mirror, that old familiar drop in my stomach hitting, even though my brain was already doing the math. No, you're fine, you're legal, you're okay, just do what you've practiced your whole life. If you're black in America, you know the drill is older than you are. Hands at 10 and 2 on the wheel. No digging around, no sudden moves, smile ready, but not too big. Respectful, but not apologizing for existing, narrating everything you do out loud so no one can later say they thought you were reaching for a weapon. I signaled pulled over right away, let the car roll to a smooth stop at the curb, turned the music off, and took a breath. In my side mirror, I watched Frank Miller get out of his cruiser, and there was something in the way he squared his shoulders that hit me wrong before he even opened his mouth. The kind of stiff, angry walk of a man who's already decided he's in a fight. He came up to my window, and instead of leaning down to meet my eyes like most officers do, he stayed standing tall, forcing me to look up into the sun, his hand resting heavy on his holster like a prop he wanted in the frame, and barked, "License and registration," like the words tasted bad. I gave him my practice smile. "Good morning, officer. Was I going a little fast back there?" I said it light, not challenging, just a normal human question, but I could see it land like a slap. His jaw clenched. "I said license and registration," he repeated louder. No explanation, no courtesy, just command. So I flipped over into survival mode. "All right, I'm going to reach into my glove compartment with my right hand," I said, moving deliberately. "My registration is inside there, because I know exactly how fast a story can twist if the first line is, 'She moved suddenly.'" I handed him the registration, then nodded toward the passenger seat where my purse sat. "My driver's license is in my wallet in that purse," I told him. "Do I have your permission to get it?" You'd think a cop would appreciate someone being that careful, but he rolled his eyes like I was wasting his time. "Just get it," he snapped. 2 words casual as anything, and yet that's where everything broke. I turned slowly, the seat belt pulling across my chest, my shoulders shifting as little as possible, opened my purse and felt for the familiar shape of my dark brown wallet, the one with my license on one side and my FBI credentials and badge on the other. I've done this 100 times on traffic stops in other cities, watched officers' expressions change from bored to respectful. The second they see the seal, watch their posture relax a little because, oh, she's one of us. I wasn't flashing it to show off, I just wanted everything above board clear, simple. My fingers closed around the wallet. I started to turn back, my mouth already forming the words, "Here you go, officer." And that's when his world and my world split apart. "Gun!" he screamed. The word hit me half a second before the bullet did. There was no pause, no, Let me see your hands. No warning shot, no visual of a weapon, because there was none, just the roar of his Glock and a sensation like something tearing through my leg and taking my breath with it. My knee buckled. My body fell sideways out of instinct, my shoulder smashing into the door, my head ringing the taste of pennies in the back of my throat. I remember looking down and seeing my own hand empty and shaking my wallet tumbling in slow motion onto the pavement outside, flipping open like something in a TV show, the gold of my badge catching the perfect late morning light as my blood started to pool underneath the car. "Don't you move, don't you move," Miller was yelling, voice high now, the barrel still pointed at me, even though I was half crumpled against the car, my leg, useless pain pouring up my body in hot waves. Not fear of me, not really. I recognize that tone. I've heard it in interviews, that frantic sound of a man who realizes he might have just destroyed his own life and is desperately trying to convince himself he had no choice. In that moment when he should have been realizing his mistake, his eyes slid from my face to the wallet lying open on the ground, and for a heartbeat I thought, okay, good. We're going to clear this up, he's going to see who I am, and we'll deal with the rest later. Instead, his boot swung out and kicked the wallet under the front of my car, like he was nudging a beer can out of a photograph. "You shot me," I managed, my voice ragged, the words catching on my breathing. "I was getting my ID, my credentials, my wallet, I told you." He grabbed my wrists, yanked them behind my back with a roughness that had nothing to do with officer safety and everything to do with dominance, slapped cuffs on me so tight I felt metal bite into skin, and leaned in close enough that I could smell coffee and something acrid on his breath. "You move a muscle, I'll put another one in you." He snarled, his hand lingering on my hip, just that extra second that turns a search into an insult, then straightened and clicked into performance mode for the radio. "Dispatch, shots fired, officer involved, suspect is a black female, attempted to draw a weapon during a traffic stop, suspect down, wounded in custody, scene secure," he said in this clipped official tone, leaving out the part where there was no weapon, and the attempt was me touching my own wallet. You know that moment when you realize someone isn't just wrong about you? They're rewriting you in real time, turning you from a person into a stereotype that fits their story, and they're confident everyone else will believe it because the uniform's on their side. Yeah, that happened. Another patrol car squealed up less than a minute later. Officer Mark Reed jogging over gun-drawn scanning like there was some invisible shooter hiding behind the hydrangeas. He took in the scene, me on the ground, hands cuffed, blood everywhere, no weapon in sight, and I watched his face do this quick flicker confusion to dread. "Frank, what the hell happened?" he shouted. "She went for a gun," Miller grunted, already sticking to the line. "Pulled her over for speeding. She got mouthy, told her to get her license. She reaches into her purse, comes up with a piece. I had no choice." Reed's gaze slid over to my open purse on the passenger seat, the absence of anything even vaguely gun-shaped, the nice leather wallet now invisible under the car, and I could see it in his eyes. He knew right there that this story was a lie. His mouth tightened, he hesitated, then he did what too many cops do when the truth threatens to crash into the brotherhood. He nodded. "Right," he said, one syllable that wrapped him into the conspiracy. While we waited for the ambulance and the sergeant, I lay there listening to them build the wall. Miller paced, rehearsing phrases like a bad actor. Dark metallic object. Furtive movement. Non-compliant from the start. Feared for my life. Giving Reed little instructions like, "Use those words in your report, they love that one." And Reed just kept saying "yeah" and "right" in this dead voice that made me want to scream. By the time Sergeant Peterson rolled up tired eyes and thicker neck, the story was polished to a shine. Miller told it like a hero who'd stared down death. Reed backed him up with a stiff little nod, and when Peterson looked down at me on the stretcher, he didn't see a victim or a badge or a career. He saw a headache, a potential investigation, a threat to one of his men. "You did what you had to do, Miller," he said, clapping him on the shoulder. "We'll get IA down here, get your statement, we'll protect you." That was the moment it clicked for me. This wasn't one bad cop making a bad call. This was a system sliding into formation around him, a blue wall going up brick by brick while I bled on the outside. In the emergency room under those harsh white lights, a doctor told me how lucky I was. Bullet went clean through the muscle, missed the femur and the femoral artery by less than an inch, some physical therapy, and I'd probably walk without a limp. I nodded, said thank you, but lucky wasn't what I felt. I felt rage, not hot and aimless, but cold, focused, the kind that settles in behind your eyes and waits. They moved me to a private room with an officer stationed outside the door, not to protect me, but to guard me, because on their paperwork I wasn't a federal agent who'd been shot without cause. I was a dangerous suspect. A couple hours later, Internal Affairs showed up. Detectives Hale and Cortez suits, slightly wrinkled faces arranged in that expression I know too well, the one that says, "We already know how this ends, we just need to fill in the blanks." Hale pulled up a chair without asking, didn't bother with small talk or, "How are you feeling?" Just flipped open a notepad. "Ms. Dawson, we're here to get your side of the story about the incident this morning." He said the way you'd say, "We're here to hear your excuse." I gave him my version clean and calm. Pulled over for allegedly speeding, provided registration, informed the officer my license was in my wallet, in my purse, requested and received permission to retrieve it. Began to do so, he shouted "gun" and fired one shot, striking me in the thigh while I was unarmed. He scratched a few notes, then started reading from Miller's statement like it was gospel. "Officer Miller states you were verbally non-compliant and refused to show your hands. He says you made a furtive movement toward your waistband. He reports seeing a dark metallic object in your hand that glinted in the sun. Each time I answered as simply as I could, 'That's a lie.' Also a lie. He saw my wallet," until he finally looked up when I added, "The only metal he could have seen was the zipper or my FBI badge inside it." "Badge," he repeated, eyes narrowing. "My credentials," I said, holding his gaze. "Special Agent Lena Dawson, FBI. I was attempting to provide my driver's license and my credentials as a courtesy when your officer shot me and then kicked my wallet under my car." There was this beat where you could feel the whole direction of the conversation could turn, where he could say, "Wait, what? Stand up, walk to the door, start making calls." Instead, he gave me a smile that never touched his eyes. "You're claiming to be an FBI agent," he said, slow and skeptical. "How convenient. You got any proof of that?" "Yes," I said. "In the wallet your officer hid on the body cameras your department should already have pulled and preserved, and in about 30 seconds on the phone records when I call my boss." He stood, notebook snapping shut. "We'll take that under advisement," he said, which might as well have been, "We don't believe you." And as he stepped into the hallway, I heard him mutter to his partner, "FBI agent. Yeah, right, and I'm the King of England. She's just trying to game the system." That right there was my twist the moment the story flipped in my head. I stopped thinking like a victim, hoping the local system would do the right thing, and started thinking like what I was, a federal investigator being actively lied to. They had their story, and there was no way I was going to let them be the only ones who got to tell it. A little later, when the nurse left and the hallway was quiet except for the bored cop at my door, I swung my legs over the side of the bed, pain spiking up my thigh, and shuffled over to the beige landline on the wall, the kind most people forget exists. My phone was evidence. My wallet was under my car, but that phone was mine. There are numbers you memorize once and never forget. I dialed a direct line in Washington, and after 2 rings, I heard a voice I'd known my entire career. "Sanders," he answered, crisp and no-nonsense, head of the FBI's criminal division, my mentor, my boss's boss. "Mark, it's Lena," I said. There was a pause, then his tone shifted. "Lena, what's wrong? Why are you calling this line?" "I'm in the hospital in Crestwood Hills," I told him, keeping my voice level. "I was shot by a local officer named Frank Miller during a traffic stop. He pulled me over for 5 over the limit, got aggressive immediately, and when I reached for my wallet with his permission, he shouted 'gun' and fired. Internal Affairs is treating me like a suspect, and they don't believe I'm FBI." On the other end, I could practically hear his blood pressure spike. "They shot you," he said, each word slow and dangerous. "Did they know who you were?" I was trying to tell him when he pulled the trigger. I said, "I told IA, they laughed it off. They're building a case to justify the shooting." Papers shuffled, keys clacked. When he spoke again, the warmth was gone, replaced by that cold, precise rage that gets things done in our world. "All right, listen to me very carefully, Agent Dawson," he said, and the title wasn't lost on me. "Do not talk to anyone else from that department. Not IA, not a supervisor, not the chief. As of this moment, you are a federal witness in a federal civil rights investigation under Title 18, Section 242. Is there an officer posted at your door?" "Yes," I said, glancing at the shadow under the door. "He's about to have a very bad day," Mark said. "I'm dispatching the nearest hostage rescue team to secure you. They'll be there fast. I'm sending an inspection team to the Crestwood Hills PD with federal warrants for all evidence, including body camera footage, radio logs, case files, and personnel records. We will take custody of everything. Whatever local investigation they thought they were running is over." I took a breath that actually felt like oxygen. "Body cams," I said. "Miller told IA his malfunctioned." Mark gave this short, humorless laugh. I'm having our techs pull their server architecture as we speak. He said, these systems buffer, they upload, they leave traces. If that camera was on at any point, we'll find it. You just sit tight, Agent Dawson. The Bureau is coming. When I hung up and shuffled back to bed, the pain in my leg was still there, sharp and insistent, but under it was something new. The sense that the blue wall that had closed around Miller was about to meet a bigger, older wall made of federal statute and forensic science. A little while later, 4 HRT guys in full gear showed up outside my door, politely but firmly relieving the local officer, and from that moment on, the balance of power in my little story shifted. You've seen clips of what happened at the police department later. The line of black SUVs in the parking lot, agents and FBI windbreakers walking in like they owned the place. Because for the purposes of this investigation, they basically did Special Agent in Charge David Harris, handing Chief Donovan a thick packet with a federal court seal on it, and saying in that calm voice that gives defense attorneys nightmares, as of 1400 hours, all evidence relating to the officer-involved shooting of Special Agent Lena Dawson is under federal jurisdiction. Internal Affairs got yanked off the case. Their thin little file confiscated, their lead detective told, "You're relieved, hand over your notes." The IT guy watched with his mouth open while our forensic techs cloned the server drives, including the folder where Miller's body cam file sat marked corrupted because he'd turned it off 3 seconds after the stop. What he didn't know, what Agent Chen in our lab knew very well, is that those cameras have a 30-second look-back feature, always recording in a loop, saving the half-minute before you hit the button. He thought he'd created a gap. What he'd really created was a trap for himself. When Chen pulled that buffered clip and hit play, there it was. The whole ugly truth, 30 seconds of video and audio from Miller's chest, right as he approached my car. You could hear my voice calm and clear. "Good morning, officer, is there a problem?" You could hear me explaining where my wallet was and asking for permission. You could see my hands, my movements slow and deliberate. You could clearly see the object I pulled from my purse, a dark brown leather wallet, no shine, no barrel, no glint. And you could hear his shout of "gun," followed instantly by the shot. You could see me collapse, hear my cry, and then, damning as any confession, you could watch his boot come into frame and kick the wallet under the car. The audio from Reed's mic filled in the rest. Miller instructing him about dark metallic object, furtive movement, they love that one, and Reed's quiet, resigned right as he agreed to help build the lie. They invited Miller for a formal interview at the field office the next morning, sat him down with his union lawyer, gave him a cup of decent coffee, and let him tell his story one more time for the federal record. She was hostile. She refused commands. She moved in a jerky way. She hid her hands. He saw a glint. He feared for his life. All the buzzwords he'd been rehearsing. Harris nodded, wrote it down, then said almost gently, "Thank you, Officer Miller, that's very clear. There's just one more witness we need to consult." Chen slid the tablet onto the table, tapped the screen, and my favorite part of this whole mess rolled in living color. You know that sinking feeling when you hear your own voice say the exact opposite of what you just swore under oath? He watched his own behavior. His own tone, watched a calm woman turn into a bleeding suspect because his prejudice filled in a gun, where there was only a wallet, and when that boot shot into frame connecting with the wallet, he claimed he never saw his face went the color of paper. Harris didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Officer Miller, your body camera did not malfunction. You stopped the recording deliberately. The 30-second buffer captured the entire shooting. Our lab matched the rubber on your boot to the mark on Agent Dawson's wallet. And we have audio of you conspiring with Officer Reed to fabricate a story. You just lied to federal agents on the record. You are under arrest for aggravated assault, obstruction of justice, perjury, and deprivation of rights under color of law." Somewhere in there, his lawyer finally found his tongue and told him not to say another word, but it was already too late. Reed got his own interview. 2 paths laid out in front of him. Keep lying and go to prison with his partner, or tell the truth and maybe keep his freedom even if he lost his badge. When they played him the same video and the audio of his own voice saying, "right," while Miller coached him on the script, he told them not only what really happened that day, but about years of Miller's behavior. The driving while black stops the complaints that went nowhere, the pattern everyone knew about and nobody stopped. By the time we got to court, there wasn't much left to fight over. Miller pled guilty, hoping for a lighter sentence, and at his sentencing hearing, I stood up with my faint limp and my scar and told the judge what it feels like to be reduced to someone else's prejudice at the end of a gun barrel. I talked about lying on that street listening to three men plan how to make sure nothing that happened to me would matter about the 17 prior complaints that had been stamped unsubstantiated, because the department always believed its own first about the difference between a split-second mistake and a chain of choices rooted in bias and arrogance. The judge gave him 4 years in federal prison and called him a disgrace to his uniform. Some people think that's too light. Some think any prison time for a cop is too harsh, and that argument is still going in comment sections and living rooms everywhere. What I know is this: he lost his badge, his pension, his freedom, and his illusion that he could write whatever story he wanted, and the system would back him up. The department went under a federal consent decree. They got new body cams that upload straight to the cloud, a civilian oversight board with actual power, and all those old complaints got pulled back out, re-examined in the harsh light of evidence and pattern. And me, I took that scar, and I built something with it. I moved into a role where I investigate civil rights violations by law enforcement. I train new agents and tell them, power is a trust. The minute you think it's your right, you've already failed. And I use my own story as a case study in how fast things can go wrong and what it takes to make them right. And now I'm telling it to you. So let me ask you this. When you hear all of that, do you think justice was really served, or did the system just sacrifice one man to protect itself? Would 4 years feel like enough if it were your leg, your life, your name in that report? And have you ever watched something unfair go down? A traffic stop, a workplace situation, a classroom, and felt that same helpless anger in your chest, that urge to speak up, and the fear of what would happen if you did? Tell me what you think in the comments. Argue with me. Share your own stories of bad stops or good cops who did the right thing, because these conversations are where change actually starts. And if you want more real stories where the truth doesn't just whisper, it fights back, hit subscribe, and stick around. We're not done yet.